content for 3 days in a row. Has everything gone mad in the world? Well, maybe, but it's not as great an achievement as doing 1,000 consecutive days on YouTube, which is something I did and finished at the start of this month, but then took a few weeks off. But now we're back to 2.0 to see what's going to be going forward with the channel. Who knows what's going to come next? I do know what's going to come right now, which is the Nike Air Force 1 Mid New York City Cool Grey. And we have to put the Cool Grey in there because there's also a white version of these guys. So hopefully what's thrown up behind us on the old green screen here is that white and the grey shoes together. But we'll be focusing on the Cool Grey ones because they are on the sneakers app here in Tokyo, Japan, already guaranteed for September the 29th. So that you can you can heavily pencil it into your diaries. Wouldn't go so far as to say pen it in because the sneakers app isn't as reliable as it used to be. But it is saying September 29th. That's only about a week away. So these probably will be coming down the line as described or as said on the sneakers app for Tokyo, Japan. But what I'm reading for the rest of the world is a different and delayed drop date. So we'll see what comes for you guys when we get closer to the date and whether or not sneakers app stays true for me here in Tokyo, Japan as we get close to that date as well. But like I say, the white one of these two isn't on the sneakers app, so let's park that and then focus in on the grey ones called the Cool Greys. And this is the third of 3 videos that I'm doing welcoming me back to YouTube after a 3-week break, and I'm trying not to lock myself into a guarantee yet of how often I'm going to do content. I could do it like weekdays, 5 days a week. I could do it Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, 3 days a week, or I could do it every day of the week like I did before. Or what I could do in this is that depends on the shoes. Let's let the shoes do the talking and the sneakers do the talking. What's coming down the line? If there are big shoes coming down the line, I make myself a video. But if it's not, then just say, okay, there's not much coming down the line. Don't need to make a video about this. So, but then the content will come irregularly, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I think channels kind of die a bit when their content comes irregularly. So we'll see. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what's coming forward. I don't know what's coming down the line. Don't know what the future holds, and I'm fine with that for now. I think that's the best way to be just at the moment till we work this thing out, especially with my little 4-year-old starting full-time education, and that's thrown the whole life rhythm off and a spanner in the works. So who knows? No guarantees just yet, except for the what's coming in the next like 8 minutes, which is me talking about the Nike Air Force 1 Mid New York City Cool Grey. And the first focus is on that mid there, and that was the main reason why I chose this shoe. Yesterday it was the Gundam Nike SB Dunk High Gundams, and that's a great shoe, especially for somebody who's in Japan to talk about, so you can see why I talk about that. And then today it was because it was an Air Force 1 Mid. I haven't looked at an Air Force 1 Mid before at the channel, now that I think about it. I think I've done some highs, definitely done a bunch of lows, but I don't think I've ever done a mid, so this could be the first mid in, we're talking like 1,100 videos or something like that. So if this is the first time I'm doing an Air Force 1 Mid, that is actually quite a big deal. So let's focus in on this guy and look at it. First things first, big picture, what's going on with this shoe is basically it's grey and white. There is a second tone of the grey, which we'll get into later on, but basically grey and white. And the deal with that is it's supposed to represent the concrete jungle that New York City is. It's all about the concrete, the roads, the buildings, the sidewalks, the construction, the whole sort of city feel of the place. Bringing it into the shoe and giving it that grey feel. So when you look at these guys, it's very obvious why they went with that colour and that tones. But if you go back to looking at the other pair as well, the white pair, I don't actually know what's going on with those guys, especially the gum soles. It might be more about the culture of the place as opposed to the actual physical, and knock it on the concrete kind of thing. So if we come back to the greys, there's your feel on there, is that concrete jungle is the story behind this shoe. So that's the big picture. And then the last thing when we look at the big picture is the second color on there is the white, and we'll look at some of the detailing in terms of the white in a couple of seconds. But the first thing to focus on is that midsole, and we always talk about this when we talk about Air Force 1s, whether it be lows, mids or highs, is what they're doing with the branding towards the heel of the midsole. And in the case of these guys, it's white on white, and I'm kind of surprised. I was expecting grey, to be honest, so that air pops out in line with the rest, especially as it's a two-tone shoe, grey and white and nothing else. it would be very easy to put grey on that Air branding on the midsole, but they chose not to. They chose to go with white on white. So little detail. Let's move in and get closer now. We've looked at the big shoe. Let's go closer, and we want to start in with that swoosh there, because that's one of the major features on these guys, is the size of the swoosh, the construction of the swoosh, and the color of the swoosh. So let's start with the first of those, the size. It's much smaller than you would normally expect on a Nike shoe or on an Air Force 1. It's very pared down. I would say it's about half the size of a standard swoosh. And I've seen these before. I can't remember the shoes that they've been on, but I've seen them before where they've had this size of swoosh. And then the second point being the construction on that is it's an inlaid swoosh. It's not an overlay. It's not something that's stitched onto the fabric of the midfoot. It's actually something that's inlaid into the midfoot on the shoe. And then the third thing in that is the colouring on there. It's a kind of plasticky feel to it, and they call it a jewel effect. Who knows? But the jewel effect, inlaid, smaller swoosh, just not my thing. Sorry, Air Force 1 mid heads out there, or anyone who's into the shoe, or the whole of New York City who love the fact that they've got a shoe named after them. It's just not my kind of thing, the smaller swoosh, inlaid, and that jewel feel to it. I much prefer my standard size swooshes stitched leather onto the outside of a shoe. But that's just me. Maybe you guys out there have a completely different story and a completely different take on that and a different view on that. Now the second thing, your feature on the shoe is being an Air Force 1 mid, you've got that strap up on the ankle there, which on its own is great, beautiful. It's an element of design on the Air Force 1 mids and highs that's a big detail that makes a big difference to the shoe. But for me, the major element is actually what's on that strap. And what we're talking about is the NYC branding, and then overlaid on the top of that, you've got the swoosh. So let's really look at that in detail, because it is exactly the same structure that we're going to see in like 4 different places. So first place on that is looking at that strap up there. It's a grey strap. The New York City is NYC is in white, and then overlaid on the top of that is a white swoosh. So grey background, white is the kind of structure going on there, and that is repeated in, I think, is it 3 more places? I'm going to go with the 2 that I'm sure about, and then the third I'm almost sure about. So the heel first. Let's go around to the back of these guys and have a look at what's going on in the back, and you can see that branding on the back there, exactly as I described it. The grey background, the NYC in white, and then the swoosh on the top of that in white. What did surprise me here was the structure of the branding panel on the back there. I was expecting something else, and it wasn't exactly how I was expecting it to look. And again, another surprise for me was when we look at the branding on the insole that matches that grey base, NYC in white, and then the swoosh in white on there. And then it was actually looking at the padding that these guys afford you around your ankle. Huge amount of support on there. Again, was a big surprise to me. But that's our third place where we've seen the branding. And then the final place we see it is on the tongue, where you've got, I think I'm right in saying it's a grey tongue, NYC in white, and then the swoosh on top of that in white. But the addition here is below that you have the words Air Force, and then the digit 1, not the word 1, underneath that. So you've got NYC swoosh above, and then Air Force 1 below. So that's the 4 places where that strap branding sort of is echoed throughout the shoe. But then if we travel down from that tongue across the lacing system and into the bottom end of the lacing system, one of the great details on this shoe is the little swoosh, tiny little white swoosh that comes at the bottom of the grey lacing system on there to add a little bit of definition, a little bit of character to the bottom end of that lacing system and the top end of the toe box on those guys there. Now earlier I alluded to there being 2 different greys, 3 different colours on this shoe. There's a lighter element to it, and what I'm talking about is looking at the outsole on these guys, and you can see it's just ever so slightly lighter than the grey of the upper on these guys. So it gives a little bit more definition, a little bit more sort of contrast going on in there when you compare it to the upper half of the shoe, which is a slightly deeper grey. I don't know if that's deliberate or if it's something to do with the way you get grey into rubber and the way you get grey into leather is a totally different sort of engineering feat. But either way, it's ever so slightly lighter on the outsole of these guys. Then if you pan out and have a look at the whole shoe and look at that, you can see a slightly darker grey in the upper end of these guys. And that pretty much takes us to the end of this shoe, and looking at that, wrapping it all around and looking at it from all those different angles. So I'm just going to finish up today's video just like I did yesterday, talking about the future and not actually knowing where it's at, but I'm fine with that. It's okay to sort of say maybe we'll do daily content, maybe it'll be 5 days a week, maybe it'll be Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays or Saturdays, or maybe it'll just be when great sneakers are coming down the line. I'm fine with it being like that just now, and I think it's important to sort of have that flexibility, because if I lock myself into X but I actually want to do Y, then that would be really sort of not a great place to get to. So it'd be good to just see where this goes and just sort of roll with it. And I'm happy with that, and hopefully you guys are happy with that as well. And since that's the way it's going to be, and since I don't have a video already lined up for tomorrow, I can't guarantee I'll be here tomorrow. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but we're just going to have to go with that and let things be a little bit random for a few weeks while we work out how this Tokyo Butter 23 channel 2.0 is going to turn out. For now though, I'm just going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys for checking out the content, and at this time, instead of saying that the same thing that I say at the end of every single video, what I will do is just say thank you for checking out the content. Keep an eye out for me sometime soon, because you're guaranteed to see me at least sometime in the next couple of weeks. Fingers crossed, pretty soon. For now though, thanks for checking out the content. See you real soon.